Week 7 of the fantasy football season. Here's a few kickers I would start this week. The first kicker, Cameron Dicker, the Los Angeles Chargers. Dicker coming off a monster game Week 6 at the Miami Dolphins. After 2 mediocre games in a row, Week 4 at the Giants, 5. Week 5 versus the Commanders, 6. And Week 6 in Miami, 17 fantasy points. So this Charger offense, obviously a solid unit with Justin Herbert, Matt McConkey, Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnson when healthy, and even Kamani Vidal had a big game out of the backfield with obviously Omarion Hampton out a few weeks with the ankle injury. So Week 7, this could be a potential high-scoring game. Their back home indoor game, which is always a plus, is this Los Angeles Charger team. And them and the Colts both put points on the board. So I think this week Cameron Dicker once again goes out there, and it wouldn't be surprising if he has another double-digit fantasy game. Next kicker, Ka'imi Fairbairn of the Houston Texans. So 2 weeks in a row before the bye in Week 6, double-digit fantasy games. It was for Fairbairn. Week 4 versus Tennessee, 10. And Week 5, a big ball game at Baltimore, 18 fantasy points. So this week, Week 7, Monday Night Football at Seattle. Fairbairn, we know he has a big boot. We know 50-plus yards isn't a problem for him. And also, this Houston Texan offense is an offense that stalls out a lot, and they don't have a lot of great options on this offense. Nico Collins, great receiver. Dalton Schultz, tight end position. Then in the backfield, Nick Chubb, Woody Marks. But like I said, not much going on offensively, and they're an offense that stalls out a lot is this Houston Texan team. So I think Ka'imi Fairbairn this week at the Seattle Seahawks go out there once again and score anywhere from 8 to 12 fantasy points. Like I said, that 50-plus yarder has been pretty easy for him over the last few seasons. Next start, Eddie Pinheiro of the San Francisco 49ers. So Pinheiro, ever since he took over the job in Week 2, he's gone out there and he's putting up numbers for the San Francisco 49er team, is Eddie Pinheiro, where he's had 4 out of 5 games with double-digit fantasy points. Week 3 versus Arizona, 12. Week 4, Jacksonville, 7. Week 5 at the Rams, 17. Week 6 at Tampa Bay, 18. And now Week 7, a good matchup versus the Atlanta Falcons. I give up the 5th most fantasy points to kickers on the season. So Pinheiro's getting opportunities. This offense is stalling out a lot in the red zone in the 30-yard line area. And 50-plus yards hasn't been a problem as well for Eddie Pinheiro. So I know all around the league, these kickers are kicking 45 to 60 yards like it's nothing weekly. We see it pretty much with every team or in every game. So Pinheiro, well, he's gone out there and 2 monster games in a row. He's definitely a start this week in a great matchup, like I said, versus the Atlanta Falcons with San Francisco back home as well. The next start, Chase McLaughlin of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So one of the more high-powered offenses in the league is this Tampa Bay Buc team. And now, obviously, they're down. Mike Evans, we don't know if he's going to play. Chris Godwin, and we know Emeka Egbuka already ruled out the next couple weeks after he left in Week 6 with a hamstring injury versus San Francisco. So Chase McLaughlin, the last month of the season, 3 games with double-digit fantasy games out of 4. This week, a good matchup at Detroit where a lot of points are going to be put on the board. And it's an indoor game as well on Monday night where, obviously, that's always a plus where these kickers could kick up to 60, 63 yards pretty easily indoors, not dealing with the elements. So he's on a high-powered offense. Without main pieces in this offense, they're going to have stalled-out drives and have to settle for field goals. And McLaughlin, he's a kicker 50-plus. Is easy for him as well. And the final kicker is Will Lutz of the Denver Broncos. So Will Lutz last week, it was a good matchup for him in London versus the Jets that gave up the most fantasy points to kickers. And this week, another New York team with the Giants coming to town in Denver, which gives up the 4th most fantasy points to kickers on the season. So Will Lutz, he's been a solid kicker for many seasons. Obviously, Sean Payton likes him a lot, trading for him when he was the Broncos head coach a few seasons ago from New Orleans, where he coached him in New Orleans as well. And he has a great matchup versus the New York Giants, where more weeks than not, their defense isn't good and they give up a lot of points. I know last week the Giants held down Philly's offense to only 17 points in that ball game. But I think Denver, after they had a bad game offensively versus the New York Jets, they're going to go out there, they're going to fix some of the things, and they're going to be home as well. And obviously, with the high altitude and the thin air over there in Denver, that ball really carries. So I think Will Lutz, once again, 9-10 fantasy points is a good possibility for him. And he's a start this week, so that's a few kickers I would start for Week 7 of the fantasy football season.